Hello, welcome to the very first snowmobile podcast here from Motorsport Idag Podcast. We have two very interesting guests. First is Swedish pro snowcrosser Balder Nääs, and all the way from the United States of America, Andrew Lindholm. Welcome to tonight's podcast.
Thanks.
Thank you.
So let's talk a little bit about our dear guests there, and so maybe start with you, Andrew. How has your season gone, and what are you imbibing for the coming seasons and the current season as well?
My season actually it has been very up and down. It's been a bit of a roller coaster. I came off of a big injury. I had a big knee injury last year, and this is my first year in the pro light class, and I switched brands. So we had quite a bit going on. But overall, I feel like it's gone well. I've proved that I'm a competitor in the pro light class, and so that's been good. Looking on to next year, I'm hoping to get things dialed in a little bit more, get my program set up a little bit better, and make a real charge at this class next year, and hopefully be a top 3, top 5 contender at every weekend.
Sounds like very, very reasonable goals, and I really hope that you're going to get there, because I've seen a little bit from your action. It looks very, very good and very impressive, so keep it up.
Well, thank you very much.
Well, for you, Balder, we can't forget the second Swede in this podcast, and I've been trying to watch you as well. And what would you say has been the ups and downs for your season, and what do you sort of strive to achieve looking forward?
Jo, nej men säsongen har varit bra, det tycker jag. SM-serien går ju bra och jag ligger delad etta där, och det är 2 deltävlingar kvar och sen stora finalen i Östersund då. Men sen, det har ju varit lite knackigt på som staden Crossen där i Söderhamn, och så sen lite andra tävlingar där det har varit mycket krascher och dåliga starter etc. Så nej men jag ser fram emot de här sista tävlingarna nu och visa vad man går för det är nu det gäller. Ja, sen jag har ju mycket bättre styrning i år nu med teamet som ställer upp och bra teamkamrater och allting, så det är dumt att klaga.
Ja, men vi hoppas att även du hittar momentet i säsongen och hittar den här stabiliteten och blir en kommande svensk Tucker Hibbert. Something that interested me a little bit about what you said, Andrew, was you have switched brand. So what can you say about that?
Well, I switched from Polaris last year, and I'm on Arctic Cat this year. It's my first year on Arctic Cat, and it's been really, really good. I think the sled is a great base, but anytime you switch they're two drastically different snowmobiles, the Polaris and the Cat. So it's definitely taken me some time to adjust my riding style a little bit, but I think it's going to be a really good fit, and I think we've gotten it to the point where I certainly feel like I'm faster than I've ever been, and riding more consistently and smoother. So I'm really happy with the switch overall. It's just been a bit of a transition, really.
Well, as I could of course imagine, as you said, you touched on it already, that there are two completely different sleds. But with that said, could you sort of try to find any way of explaining what the main differences between the sleds, sort of riding wise, has been for you, sort of when we talk about adapting to the different sleds?
Sure. Well, the Polaris, you ride more on the center shock and on the skid frame. Your skis are up a lot, you're hard on the gas, and you kind of lean a lot more and pull on the sled. And in my opinion, the Polaris is more work to ride than the Arctic Cat is. The Arctic Cat, everybody that I've worked with and the faster guys helping me tell me just to stay in the middle of the sled and let the sled do the work. And the Arctic Cat corners really, really well. I think better than the Polaris does. So overall, I think it's less effort to ride and a smoother ride. The Polaris, when things get really, really bombed out and big and deep holes like that sled does work really, really well. But I think we've got our Cat to the point where it takes that stuff just as well. And then we have the benefit of better cornering. So that would be, I would say, the biggest difference. The Arctic Cat has a lower center of gravity. You have to attack the track a little bit differently on it.
That is one of the best explanations I've heard in quite a while. I should say that. Man, this guy is a pro for sure. Going to Balder. Det som han nämnde nu då, är det något som du också upplever mot andra maskiner som du har kört genom dina tider också? Att Arcticen är en riktigt fin maskin att köra i riktigt hårda förhållanden i synnerhet?
Ja, jag har inte åkt så mycket andra märken. Jag har ju åkt Arctic nästan hela min karriär, så det är svårt att jämföra där. Men alltså det man kan säga är att Arctic har ju en väldigt kraftfull motor i alla fall. Det tycker jag syns ganska tydligt på tävlingar och sådär. Och sen, ja, den styr ju såklart jättebra, det gör den ju. Den är bra i kurvor och allting. Så, men det är svårt att jämföra med andra märken som jag inte har kört på, liksom. Bara bedöma så, men han har ju rätt i det han säger.
All right, well, so for me, you know, looking through a little bit of the data of the 2017 6000 RSX and XE race sleds, it seems like it is a monumental upgrade and sort of R&D program that's been behind the evaluation and sort of evolution of this new sled. There seems to be new T-map sensors, Speedworks ported cylinders for increased RPM and improved performance. It's a modified 600 CT TSC throttle bodies from Speedworks. So there's definitely a lot of things that it seems to be that have happened to the sled since throughout the years. And so when it comes to riding the sled, how do you feel, Andrew, that the sled is behaving when it comes to the whoop section, and how does it take bumps and uneven surfaces?
I think it takes it really well. When I first got on this sled, it took me a little bit to adjust to it. The seat's taller, the front end sits lower, so I had the feeling like I was going to get kicked over the handlebars. But once I got used to the sled a little bit, I realized I was hitting this stuff that in my head, you know, as I'm coming down, I'm like, oh no, I'm going to hit this and I'm going to get kicked over the bars and be done. And then I realized the sled takes it. It soaks it up. It handles it really, really well. And I've had many times where I think I'm done. You know, I think there's no way I'm going to have a huge crash, and the sled just soaks it up. So I think it works really well, and I think Arctic Cat is really committed to their development program, and they listen to us and are changing things. And over the years watching Arctic Cat, I was a little bit jealous because I didn't feel like we were getting as much support on other brands, where Arctic Cat, they hear something and they change it right away, it seems like. And that's been my experience on the Cat so far. So I love it. I think it works great.
So let's get into a subject that is very, very, very talked about in general when it comes to the racing side of things here. And it is, of course, when it comes to the sort of the tracks, the layout, the grooming. And I'm going to start with Balder Nääs here. Vad tycker du om kvaliteten på svenska banor? Tycker att det ger den här farten, liksom det som åkarna och spectators, alltså åskådarna, verkligen vill ha?
Jo, men det börjar väl närma sig, det tycker jag. Det har ju, man ser tydligt nu på tävlingarna att det börjar dra sig mer mot alltså stadioncross-liknande event. Så det är liksom lite kortare och tajtare banor, och det är inte de här långa naturbanorna längre. Det är ju några stycken i serien såklart, men det är ju mycket mer stadioncross och mer USA-inspirerat, kan vi säga.
Det är lite mer, alltså, mer USA-inspirerat, helt enkelt, kan man säga så.
Ja.
Ja, men det var bra.
Bra, alltså, om man ska förklara USA-inspirerat så är det ju, alltså, ja, det är som tajtare banor och liksom större hopp och djupare knölar, och det är lite mer intensitet i allting.
So, Andrew, what we are trying to sort of point out here is basically the difference in the layout of the track between Sweden and the North American sort of layout and philosophy, that is. We have had a history of very longer sort of tracks. You know, the tracks have been longer. They haven't had, maybe your tracks are sort of mostly very short. They're very, very big jumps, which invites to sort of, I would say that sort of your way of riding is a little bit like NASCAR. It's very sort of tight, it's quick, it's, you know, it's very sort of speed and spectator focused. Is that correct to describe it in that way?
I would say so. I haven't raced in Sweden or anywhere overseas, but our tracks are definitely short. It's intense, tight. Usually the tracks are wide enough where you can still make some passing, but it's definitely intense racing in close quarters. Sometimes it's frustrating because it feels like the tracks are built to where everyone can go the same speed. There's not as much separators or as much carrying corner speed and stuff like that, where you have the more open tracks, and it really points out what riders can carry momentum and stuff like that. So the real tight tracks, it's fun. It's close racing, but sometimes it's frustrating too.
So I'm gonna ask you. This is a little bit of a hard question, but I think it's very relevant anyway. And the question goes like this. When you have seen riders from abroad coming into North America and race in the same races as you have, what would you say from your experience is one of the key things that they have had issues adapting to?
Racers from abroad coming to the US, you mean?
Exactly.
I would say the biggest thing seems to be just how rough and gnarly our tracks get. How deep the holes get and in such a hurry, and they change so fast. I think that's the biggest thing.
So when the tracks sort of have had some races on them, and they are in that condition that you just mentioned, how do you think mentally to approach the track differently, maybe from this sort of the earlier phase during the day or races?
One of the biggest things is watching the races coming up before you. Watching line choice and stuff like that. You have to really be able to adapt to it fast as the lines go away, and as there might be a triple that you can do at the first and second and third laps, but on the fourth lap that line is blown out and you can't hit it anymore. So really paying attention, watching lines during the race, and looking around and seeing where you can go and what you can do is probably the biggest thing.
Oh, that sounds really interesting to hear, because the difference is so significant from the more European style. Då går vi till dig, Balder, när det kommer till sättet som våra banor är och hur de utvecklas under, inte bara en race, men just under från början, mitten och till slutet. Hur skulle du säga att man ska försöka tänka för att maximera resultatet på ett bra sätt?
Hitta den ideala linjen i racen, menar du?
Absolut.
Okay. Det är väl först och främst första varvet är väl att åka där det finns plats. Och sen kommer ut som 2 och 3, då kanske man ligger bakom en stund och kollar hur de åker och vart de tar sina spår. Och så ser man kanske kan åka på något annat och jämföra. Men nu kommer jag ikapp han där fick jag någon skoterlängd. Då är det bara att köra om, och så sen får man hoppas att man har tänkt ut rätt spårval.
So, this is the part in the interview where I would want maybe the individual drivers to ask the other driver a question. So if you, Andrew, have any question for Balder, or Balder, do you have any questions for Andrew, let's mix and let you guys have a conversation.
I have a question.
Yeah.
How stacked is the lights field?
Oh, it's incredibly stacked. I didn't expect to have such a hard time just making finals. Just to be in the top 15. And one of the most telling things that I saw that showed how stacked it was is, I believe it was one night in New York, 1st through 15th in our final, were within 1 second a lap. Is just how close everyone was. So the starts have been huge, and it's incredibly close. You have a bad day and you're just going to get smoked if you're a little off your game.
And so, Andrew, do you have any questions about racing in Scandinavia or racing in Sweden particularly?
I do. I guess one of my biggest things that I'm curious about is, what's the participation like? I mean, how many racers do you usually have in your pro classes on the circuit?
Yeah, in the stock class, I think we have like around 30 riders in in the Sweden Championship, and then we have a smaller division when I think it's like 20 riders there or something, and then we have an open class too, and they are like I think maybe around 20 people each race.
Okay, that's interesting because we're so out of the loop here. It doesn't feel like it's easy to really know or hear what these riders are coming from, and so it's interesting. I'd love to make it over there and race sometime.
Yeah, come over, race clash.
Exactly.
I would like to. It's not going to happen this year, but hopefully next year. My dad and I have been talking about it for a few years now, so we would love to make it happen sooner than later.
Okay, so when it comes to the racing part, what would you say is the most sort of driving force that keeps you motivated? And this is a question for both riders. What makes you feel that this is a reason to spend a lot of money on, let's face it, a lot of time on, and what fuels you with the sport of snowcross? Well,
for me, I would say, there's the competitive spirit. You want to be the best, or you want to prove you're the best. That's probably the biggest thing, and the feeling you get when you do well. It's irreplaceable. There's nothing else like it. That's what keeps me coming back.
Ja, jag måste väl säga det nästan exakt lika känsla som jag har, som Andrew säger. Det är ganska spot on faktiskt.
Ja, men det är ju också så att man måste ju ha någonting som man känner att man är driven av, och det är ju det som är kul med skotercrossen också. Det är liksom, du har möjlighet att träffa åkarna, du har möjlighet att ha en bra tid på sidan av racingen också under själva eventet. Och det finns så mycket med skotercrossen som är positiv, och jag förstår att man som åkare få motivation av dels att såklart att prestera bra på banan, ha bra sponsorer, ha bra folk runt sig, men även det här att man träffar folk, en inspiration för andra. Så det kan jag förstå, och det som är så roligt för mig att höra från er bägge speciellt då, och när man är på specifika race. Well, that is officially the first Motorsport Idag Podcast Snowcross special that we have had. We're going to continue with this if people like it. I have been having a blast. We're talking with Balder Nääs and Andrew Lindholm. And yeah, let's before we go, Lindholm, what did you say about your last name? Is it true that you have some Scandinavian relatives?
I do. On my dad's side mostly. My grandma is Norwegian, almost 100%, and my grandpa is Swedish. So I have strong Scandinavian roots.
All right, so let's make this a little bit special. Let's make it a little bit funny. How much of Swedish traditions do you have in your household when it comes to food and Easter and Christmas, etc.?
I wish I could say that there's more, but I don't know that we have much. We do get a little bit of lutefisk here and there, though.
All right, well, I don't know about you, Balder, but that for me, nah, that is on. You should be an honorary Swede, but just because of that.
That's disgusting.
Oh, thanks. I will take it.
So, but maybe if before we go, I can sort of send over a little bit of surströmming. Basically,
sure.
The weird Swedish delicacy where for some reason people choose to eat rotten fish. So maybe that's something you can don't do it before your snowcross racing. Just saying, that ain't a good idea. Though.
Sounds good. We'll wait till after this weekend.
For sure. Andrew, I would like you to just stay a little bit longer after this interview. Balder Nääs, thank you for joining. It's been a great pleasure to do this first ever podcast with you guys. You're great, and I wish you the best. Looking forward, my name is David Ray Anderson. This is Motorsport Idag Podcast.